when the presentation's up there. I don't know if it
It's also
matters.
treated when it's
I saw it earlier. Or you just want to take a nap, and that's just okay too.
It's funny, when I was downstairs at lunch and everything, I was like, oh,
That's too late?
coffee would be good.
Maybe the light.
That's too.
Is that okay?
All right, thank you for coming in today. We have a nice small group, but we're being recorded, so that's good. My name is Susan Richmond, and I am right now working for the Center for Autism and Related Disabilities at USF. Has anyone ever heard of CARD? Okay, CARD is one of 7 centers around the state of Florida, and we provide a bunch of different services for individuals.
You guys were a discretionary project?
Yeah, we are from DOA, and we provide services for individuals with autism, their families, and the professionals that work with them, including training, technical assistance, public awareness, and consultation. We also, I work with the adults, so that kind of makes sense that I'm here at this conference, or adults meaning people 18 and up, so they're moving into the world of work, employment, transition, college, and so forth. I also run a program called the Learning Academy at USF, which is started out under the umbrella of CARD and now is its own entity there. And that is a 2-semester program for young adults on the spectrum who want to learn a little more about themselves and what they need to do next in life. So 15 students a year attend for 2 semesters, and we have very good outcomes, and they learn about themselves and move forward to things like employment, higher ed, technical schools, and what have you. But that's kind of my hat at CARD, and we do advocacy. We do work with people to make sure they understand what's going on in the big picture and in their own lives, but also to make sure that they're getting the best services and supports that they need. But in my past life, I was the deputy director of the Developmental Disabilities Council in New Jersey for 20 years and did much more of what I'm going to be talking about today than I do now at CARD. But anyway, they asked if I would talk about getting involved community-wise, and I've done a lot of that. So you can go on to the next slide and talk a little bit about what is advocacy. And I know that the Florida Network on Disabilities does a lot of that for families with regard to school and understanding what's going on with their child's education as it pertains to compliance with the law. But in general, it's supporting a cause or proposal. We probably don't realize it, but we've all done some form of advocacy in our life that had nothing maybe to do with what we're sitting here for today. And it has to do any number of things. Influence policy, influencing laws, budgets, but using facts to back that up. So you're not just some wild person out there trying to make change. Using the media and messaging, and I don't think ever before in the history of community organizing, the social media aspect has really advanced the ability to really gather interest in something and move something forward. And it really always has to do with change, wanting something that's going on to be different for some reason. Okay, so basically getting started with that is needing to know the basics. And so many people just feel like something isn't right, but they don't even really know the beginning steps of how to go about doing something and why am I feeling like it's not right. So really understanding that, and the best way to do that is usually there's laws that are written out there to that people for some reason or at some level think they're complying with. So knowing what those laws are, and then getting on all kinds of listservs, mailing lists, and I moved to Florida 7 years ago, and I didn't know much about what was going on in Florida. I could tell you everything that's going on in New Jersey and every issue and who's on what side. I didn't know any of that when I got here. And I thought in order for me to do a good job at what I had to do, I better find out. And that's what I did. I just kind of went to the natural suspects, I guess you would call them. For example, in New Jersey, there's a entity that's similar to FND. That there's one in every state, actually, of PTI, Parent Training and Information Program. Said, well, I want to see what they're doing and look at what their issues and concerns are on their website. Obviously, the DD Council in Florida. The different disability-specific groups, Autism Speaks, CARD even, and do they agree with one another? Do they not? Just to kind of understand my place in the state, because it was important for me to know all of that. Obviously, I came here with opinions and very strong principles and values, and well, needless to say, I did all that research before I even started to work for CARD because I couldn't work for an agency that I didn't agree with. But just where we are at, and believe me, there are differences. There are really significant differences in states about how councils operate, and USEDS, you know what USEDS are, the three entities that the Disability Developmental Disabilities Act funds are movers and shakers in your state in getting things changed for the good for people with disabilities. And if you're not connected in with them, you really need to be. Your DD Council and your centers for, there are two USEDS, University Centers for Excellence in Disabilities in Florida, one in my University of Miami and one at USF. And CARD is really under their umbrella. So knowing all that, learning who they are, who are the players and what's going on in the world, talk to other people that you know. If you're feeling like you want to learn or you're feeling like something's not right, see, kind of test the waters to see whether or not, is it me or is it really an issue out there? Obviously, voting is really important. At the end of the day, legislators make the final decision on laws, and if they are not informed properly, or they have a personal agenda, or if they feel like it's the right thing because someone told them that and no one told them different, it makes a big difference. We have and I heard a very significant attorney speak about this for Florida. We have a bunch of decision makers now who've decided about the diploma options, and it's going to be a mess in the state. And it happened. It's done. It's the law. Now you can always go back and change the law. I used to teach that in Partners in Policy Making in New Jersey, but it's way easier to not have to do that and get it right the first time. Not that I'm against everyone getting a diploma. I really think that's a good idea, but how we do it is really important. And then finally, taking action. So you don't have to change that yet. One of the things that I guess people are getting started in this business don't really understand the distinction is what's a problem and what's an issue. So I just thought I'd kind of talk about that a little bit, because maybe what you think is the most monumental thing going on in your life might not be a concern for anyone else. So does anyone have any idea of what that might be? I thought I'd put that out there. What would a problem be for someone? Let's keep it in the disability kind of advocacy field.
Lack of inclusion in the community.
You think that's a problem or an issue?
Like the waiting list, when you're trying to get something, and the waiting list is forever.
You're talking about the Agency for Persons with Disabilities waiting list. Okay, I think that's an issue. It's certainly a problem.
Oh.
And I'm thinking about when you're thinking about it personally. So just do the button and we'll get. So what I'm trying to distinguish is there many times the words are used interchangeably, and they're really not. One is mistaken for another, but they are different. So you can go ahead. All right. My adult child will never get served because of the APD waiting list. Is that a problem or an issue?
It's a problem and an issue.
I think it really, it's a little more than semantics, but it really is, you're mad. You the first thing you raised, right?
Yeah.
You're angry because you've got this situation in your life. What's going to happen? I'm going to die. I have this kid, It's never going to get served, blah, blah, blah. That's your problem. That's not an issue. Because if you're taking it from the perspective of how it impacts me personally and me alone, that is not the way you begin your advocacy efforts. You just realize that for me, we got a problem here. So there you go, problem. However, the state of Florida has a waiting list of over 20,000 people with little or no significant funding in the past few years. That's more of an issue. So that is taking your problem and then putting it out there that it affects a bunch of people, much done about it. And yeah, issue. So you get the difference? So usually issues begin with someone's problem. But when you think of like things like, well, you know what, my neighbor plays music all night and I can't sleep. And, you know, where are you going? You know, unless you can find every other person in your community who has that same cause, they're not going to, that's your problem, honey. Go figure it out. You know, take them to court. Let's try another one. My son's school district did not give him a good education. That's a problem. Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people feel like that. You know, it's like, whoa, where do you go now that you have this like situation in your life and you want to do something about it? So let's see how that turns to an issue. 75% of the students with disabilities who graduated from my school district are not gainfully employed. And a little more like oomph to it, or you can take that somewhere. Okay, good. So it really, you have to define it. What is the issue that you want? Okay, you can go next. I'm sorry. You're going to address. And when you start with that, you have a lot of things to think about because, again, you have to really distinguish between, is this my individual problem that no one's going to really care, or a bigger issue that I could get other people on board to kind of agree with me, help me influence things and that sort of thing. Is it the right time to get involved? Like sometimes, and that goes back to that whole doing your homework and understanding. Maybe people have made significant efforts in the past that you don't know about, and resolutions might have happened and then people didn't follow through, and what seemed to be a big problem wasn't really perceived as a problem anymore because nobody did anything about it. So you really have to understand the timing. In Florida, it's really important timing because the legislature only meets a couple of months a year. In New Jersey, the legislature met year-round, so we were always working at it. I kind of like the way Florida does it, but you can't start to think about your problem a week before the session. You have to, if it's going to be a problem that's going to need a legislative kind of solution. But understanding where that all is, even in the placement of attention to an issue, we would plan events that we wanted media attention for on certain days because that was the days the press would pay attention. You don't want to ever do anything when the next day is Saturday. Nobody reads the paper. You want that front page, blast on a weekday afternoon. And there are also times when people in the press are looking for stories and times when they're not. So understanding what else is going on in the world around you is really important. So timing is a lot. Is anybody else interested in this, or is it just you? And that's a big one, because really our problems seem to be monumental to us. But when you go out there and you find out nobody really cares, it's like, well, you can either find a way to make them care or kind of rethink your problem. I know here, I was very surprised about, I shouldn't say this on TV, the lack of advocacy in Florida. It's a very complacent state. And it was really, really hard for me, I don't mind saying this because I say it all the time, to take my disability council hat off and be more of a neutral party, because we are a discretionary program from education, and we're supposed to be mediator. We're Switzerland at card, we want to help everyone, and obviously that's always the best way. But when I came here and I just would hear a parent like, there's that waiting list. Oh, well, I'd be like, really? Things like that would be in the paper every day up in New Jersey. We'd be in the face of every possible person who would care to listen. And then when that happens, more people know about it, and it becomes other people's concern. But if you're saying it's your own situation, well, we'll have to figure something else out. Or an IP meeting. Well, they just don't have the money to do this in the school district. It's something that you have to really try to get the public interested. What do you want to accomplish? And really having to think that through. And do you want something major to happen? Do you want more people, media attention? Do you want a new law? Do you want policy to be changed, or whatever it is? And I'm never going to be able to talk about all the steps to all this in the next 30 minutes, but just kind of really listening or thinking through these things, and then really the how will you accomplish it? And there's like books written on all of that. So you can change that. But again, knowing the facts is really, really important. You have to be able to back up every statistic and every number, if you're using them, to whoever is listening, because that's what's going to make a decision maker decide yes or no. They think about votes, and they think about, well, if this is really impacting 75% of the students in one school district, none of them are getting jobs, and we're paying all this money to educate them, then maybe that could be a really big problem for us if it did get out, if the media knew, if whatever. So that's important. I love that thing on Bay News 9 where they do the truth meter. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? PolitiFacts, yeah. It's every day, I think, they take a statement from a politician, and somebody over at Bay News 9, the political people, analyze it, and they have a like pants on fire, like kind of scale of to the truth. And you can play around a lot with numbers, and they really do like significant research into whatever that person is saying, and then they say, well, yeah, it was sort of half true, and then they actually even tell you why. I must be like wonky. I love to hear stuff like that back in my DD Council world, but it's interesting. But that people spew, I think, a lot of false numbers and data and statistics. So you really, you can do it, but you better be prepared to back it up when, push comes to shove, particularly legislators. They do not want to know that you didn't tell them the truth, because they'll never listen to you again. So knowing the facts and having that information handy at your fingertips. So if you are upset about your school district and you want to have a meeting with the superintendent, having a sheet with facts that you can, here I have these written down for you so you can have them, and please call me if you have any questions, and back where you got the information and all that good stuff, because you're doing a tremendous amount of work for them. They don't want to be bothered with that stuff, or they'd have to give it to a staff person to research. So if you have it all there, but you really need to have that information ready and it to be correct. And reporters are like that too. So if you're going to go to a newspaper to make a big splash about a story that you think is a significant problem, they want to know, where did this come from? Where did you get this information? That kind of thing. So knowing and using those facts strategically, again, thinking of the other stuff, the timing, the who to who, and all of that is really, really important. Having clear and concise message. We went to Washington a lot in New Jersey, and it's part of what DD councils do. But if you get 10 minutes with your legislator, you're lucky. So you better just be able to have your pitch or your, story, boom, 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 and then back that up with something in writing. Some kind of, we went through all different ways of trying to get the attention, whether we were using, one time we made a thing like it looked like a phone message back in the day when we didn't have like all the technology, but those little pink phone message things and we used them so we know people looked at them then because they were phone messages, and we put the message that we had in those little lines down there and had them printed and, sent them out. So, just kind of having that message, knowing what it is, even if it's going to be a big deal thing, like where you're really looking for a law, having billboards but the message has to be understandable and very clear and concise. We have all of our acronyms in our world and our jargon and what we all know when we're talking to one another. Trust me, the world out there doesn't know it, and you could be giving them letters that they totally don't understand. So, you got to be careful about that and explaining everything. We should always be doing that anyway, because new families don't understand that stuff and that kind of thing. The whole nurturing of relationships and working collaboratively. You never know when an issue is impacting someone that you would never even thought of. When I worked in New Jersey, we had a project from the council called Monday Morning, which has no connection to anything. It was just the name we gave it. But there were county groups that worked on like local issues, state issues, and federal. And the state and federal, we were able to give them a lot of guidance, but we didn't know what their local issues were because we didn't live in every county that in the state. We were just the staff to that. But one group was concerned about access. Again, it was years ago, and we've gotten a little better with that. But bringing in moms with strollers and old people with canes and difficulty walking, making the local community understand that this is not just about people with disabilities. When your stores have aisles that you can't even negotiate through without paraphernalia, without a baby stroller and this and that, or a ramp or a way to get into the store, that makes that issue all the more impactful because there's a heck of a lot more young moms with baby strollers and people who are elderly who have issues, and then businesses start to think maybe I better do something about that because that's people spending money in my place. Making your voice heard, and there are just so many opportunities, especially now with social media. I don't think this kind of work is really great for someone who's shy. You got to really be sort of have a thick skin and not take it personally when someone doesn't really like what you're saying to them. When I was a lot younger, we were trying to close an institution in New Jersey, and a colleague and I approached a legislator just sort of in the hallway at the State House, and he said, "Oh, are you two still whining about this?" And I felt really bad. I was a lot younger, and I remember it haunted me for so long. It was like, oh, he thinks I'm a whiner, and I wanted to be so professional and all of that. But you have to just develop this, like, whatever, I don't care what you think about me. Yes, I'm still whining about this. It's still an issue. But it is funny. And then the whole nice, say thank you. Even if you don't like what you're hearing from whoever it is that you're talking to, whether it's a school board person or, a mayor or all the way up the ranks, maybe next time they'll say, well, they were really nice and thanked me anyway, so maybe next time they'll be more inclined to listen to what you have to say and be more open, and it's not a bad thing. Being nice is always good. After I get to tell you, you have to be like a hard ass and not be shy, but be nice. Okay. Oh, is that the last one? Knowing the facts, using the facts. And is that the next one? Oh. Okay. Oh, no, I did this one already. All right. Yeah. Well, what I thought I'd do, and this is going a lot faster than I thought, I worked with a lot of really significant people in New Jersey, but I just wanted to demonstrate how amazing one person's issue or problem could make such a big difference in the world out there. And this lady is a mentor of mine. She's Elizabeth Boggs. She's a PhD. She's passed away, but she really was just like a nuclear physicist or something. She literally was a, what do you call that, brain? You say it's not brain.
Rocket scientist.
Yeah, rocket scientist. Yeah, she worked on the Manhattan Project. She was just the most fascinating person ever. And probably now that I think about it on the autism spectrum, because she's a little weird, not a social person at all, but she smart. Oh my God. But she was smart in her field. But she had a child, and her husband was also I think they met on the Manhattan Project. It's a fascinating story. And they had a child who had significant intellectual disabilities. And she stopped what she was doing, realizing that things were not quite taking her problem, let's say, and kind of trying to figure out how we're going to make his life as good as it could possibly be. And the story goes that she met with a bunch of other parents, and they formed what is now known as the ARC. It was initially the Association for Retarded Children back in the day, and then it moved to Association for Retarded Citizens, and now they didn't want that word in there, so now they're the ARC. And she was just really fascinating. Recognized leader, John F. Kennedy, and what's her name, Eunice Shriver. She had a lot to do with the beginnings of the foundations that the work they've done with people with intellectual disabilities. And like I said, the founding member of the ARC, and now we're talking in the 50s. And yeah, she was on President Kennedy's panel on mental retardation, which was the first time ever a office, the President of the United States recognized that. And they also had a family issue, the Kennedys. But this was one lady who wasn't stupid by any means, but changed her whole focus because she had a problem. And she did more for changes in disability world than probably any other person I can think of in the history of the disability rights movement. And she was amazing. Tragically died of a brain injury from an automobile accident, which was so ironic and wrong.
But she was older.
Oh my gosh, she was 90 and still driving.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
She was like amazing. She never stopped. But yeah, she was driving home from some kind of a hearing or something. It was icy. She lived in Hunterdon County in New Jersey, which has always got worse snowy weather, and she ran off the road. And it was just horrible. But
So you
really,
met her.
oh, I worked with her all the time. Yeah, she was on the DD Council when I first. And you were talking. I was like 21. It's like, oh my God, this woman. And she was. It just gives me chills to think about. I loved her, and very, very wonderful person. And we talk about her a lot. Okay, the next person is Ed Roberts. Has anyone ever heard of Ed? Ed Roberts is known as the father of the independent living movement. And he had, I think he was paralyzed from the neck down from polio, maybe one of those kind of things, because he was probably he's also passed away, but he was not as old as Elizabeth, and he went to rehab because he was in the iron lung. That's how he breathed, and he went to which is vocational rehabilitation because he had issues, and the counselor, who also had a disability, gave him a test and said, the test shows you're very aggressive. Like that was a negative thing. And he said, like, well, if you were paralyzed from the neck down, don't you think aggressive would be an asset? It's like, I don't have any choice. But he never felt like things were right for college students. He was in Berkeley, California. And to have access to the classroom, he wanted an education. And him and other people in the disability or that he met who were in wheelchairs and whatever formed together with their problem and actually created the first independent living center in the state of California. And later, Jerry Brown hired him as the director of that very agency that told him it would never be feasible for him to work. So he ran California's vocational rehabilitation office. And this was just a guy who had a misfortune of getting sick, becoming disabled, and seeing that it wasn't right. And now we have independent living centers all over the country who work toward helping young adults and adults do better, get better services and different things in their life. Are you all familiar with ours here in Florida? Yeah, they're good. They really are. And I think they're out there today.
They're out there.
Yeah, I think they're out there today. So he was the father of the independent living movement. Now, up until that point, no one thought that was an important thing. And I had the pleasure of meeting him as well. The last person is Nancy Ward. Nancy is a self-advocate. She has an intellectual disability, and she is known for starting the People First movement. Are you all familiar with that, for self-advocates?
Yes.
Yeah, she's amazing. She came to New Jersey and sat with us for a week. We paid her to come and help us get our self-advocacy movement going because they were the first ones in Nebraska, and now it's a national organization of self-advocates, and they meet all the time, once a year, I think, in Washington, and they do a lot of really significant work. But she said she never even saw herself as a person because of all the labels that were placed on her throughout her life, and didn't think she had anything to offer. And she found something objectionable to the something to do with the Special Olympics, and felt like, why are you representing people in that program as objects of pity? Everybody doesn't always win. She had a lot of issues with Special Olympics, which a lot of people do. And they responded to her, and at that point started moving more toward the unified sports concept, where it wasn't just people with disabilities involved in their games. They've got a long way to go, but that was Nancy. And she's amazing. She's a public speaker. She, like I said, she gets paid to come and help other states form their self-advocacy groups. And it took her years to get confidence, but she's an amazing woman. And I just wanted to point out, there's a person with a disability, a regular old young adult who saw something, and they all had a problem. And Elizabeth Boggs, a nuclear physicist who knew nothing about the world of disability, and look at what they did just by recognizing and doing all the steps to make a difference. And I would really love to see Florida kind of pull together and create some of these wonderful role models and examples, because that's who the people I know who I worked with in institutions, and the self-advocates and the parents look to these people as their role models and feel like they did it. I could do this. Are you all familiar with Partners in Policymaking? That's a really good program that if you want to learn more, are you parents, professionals?
Professionals. I don't know.
Some parent and professional.
But it's like getting a graduate course in disability policy, history, the DD councils usually in states fund it, and you go 1 weekend a month for several months, maybe 7 or 8 months, and each month is focused on an important topic, and you kind of learn how things evolved and why it's an issue and how to advocate and how to connect with the right people. And most of them do like kind of lessons in how to testify before a legislative committee and how to write testimony and meeting with things. And then we do mock hearings at the State House where you can practice your skill. It's a wonderful program. Partners in Policymaking. And I don't think it costs anything. I think, they do it once a year. I don't know how Florida does, to be honest. We did it in New Jersey. It was free, and it was 9 months long. But I do know the creator of that program, Colleen Wick. She is the director of the Minnesota DD Council. And on their website, you can actually do it online now. I don't think it's anything close to the experience of going and sitting in the classroom, and they bring in really consultants from all over the country who are leaders. But you can do it that way too. It's if you just typed in Minnesota Developmental Disabilities Council, you could get to their website. And that is it.
She's still around, right?
Colleen's around. She's still director. She's been director for, oh my gosh, long, because since I became involved. So she's going to probably retire soon. She's going to have to. Do you have any questions? I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Are you familiar with any advocacy efforts in Florida that, I'm not either.
Formal or informal?
Yeah.
Informally, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm familiar with informal, small pockets
Right.
of advocacy efforts. Developmental Disabilities Day coming up.
At the State House.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. That's a very polite day.
Yeah.
We had those days too, but that's not the same as advocating for an issue or a cause.
Okay.
Yeah.
My daughter has a doctorate degree in mental health.
Uh-huh.
She's only 30. And we recognize that issue. I come from New Jersey, just like you.
Oh.
I'm a teacher. And then my brother is a psychiatrist, and my father's a doctor too. But here, when we move, she'll recognize that issue for the children. So how do we get around it? Because I have a lot of support systems in the family.
Yeah.
The issue is recognizing a child at a very young age that there is a mental health problem. And she did that as her master's thesis and her doctorate. How do you start?
She must know if that's what she did, right?
No, because she's teaching, she's also a nurse. Now she is into nursing.
Well, I mean,
You know,
I could just think,
we're the one that's pushing her to go
there
back.
is a network called
Okay.
the Children's Mental Health. If you gave me your email, I could email, and they do a really good thing every Friday. I think it's kind of the wrap up of the week. And they have a lot of information. I mean, just kind of thinking of those beginning steps I was talking about, that is, if you're not connected with them,
We want her to
you need
go
to
back.
be.
We
Yeah.
want her to go back.
You need
All of
to,
us can see, I like the way you were able to make me understand between the problem and the issue.
yeah.
A personal problem becomes an issue if you really put the others,
You
not
got
just
to
you,
get,
so that the others can benefit from your problem by making this. That's
Mhm.
how I understand it, and thank you so much.
I wish I could remember Children's Mental Health something or other. And every Friday, sometimes they're late and it comes out on Monday, but they have like a blast, and all things going on with children's mental health. They talk about, if there's money available for grants, if there's an issue, that if there's an event, a workshop, whatever. So if you just wrote your email down, I could send you, and anyone can get it.
Like if I Google, what would?
No, it's an actual link I'd have to send you so that you can sign up for it. And once you do that, then you get it every Friday. Well, I'm a little early, but thank you all. It's been fun to go back to my past life and think about these things. But the rewards of getting something accomplished are so wonderful. We did a lot of celebrating and a lot of rethinking things. And one of my best achievements, I think, or because we worked really hard in New Jersey on the Americans with Disabilities Act, and they had regional people who helped talk to key legislators, and I was one of them, and I actually was at the White House when that bill was signed by George Bush, so that was pretty awesome. So I figured I better go, no matter what my political feelings were, because probably never get invited to the White House again. So that was going to be a first and a last. And it was actually very, very nice. So thank you. And
Is there still a stand in Pinellas?
excuse me?
Yeah, there's still, I Googled it.
I don't know what happened to them. Yeah.
We've exhibited, I feel.
Yeah, I think it was funding problem within the last few years. Yeah, I don't think it's around anymore. Because yeah, they were out there. They were pretty